Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com. Today I'm joined by actor on stage and screen Timothy Cox, whom I've gotten to know over the years. He's been on the podcast a couple of times over the years, and we are going to continue with my Class of 1999 series as we discuss Sam Mendes' Best Picture winner for that year, American Beauty. And after recent reviewing, I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. It's a tough movie to talk about in light of revelations that have come out since, but I still think it's going to be a conversation that you'll enjoy and appreciate. So please welcome to the podcast to discuss American Beauty, Timothy Cox. It's my pleasure to be joined on the podcast today by an actor I've gotten to know over the years, Timothy J. Cox. He's appeared in a lot of short films that I've reviewed over the years, and he's an actor who does work on stage as well as in film. And he's here with me today to continue my Class of 99 series for the podcast and discuss the Best Picture winner that year for Sam Mendes' American Beauty. It's an interesting film to discuss. It always kind of was, especially in light of things that we've heard over the past couple of years with regards to its star and Best Actor winner, Kevin Spacey. It makes for an even more interesting conversation. And thank you for joining me today, Timothy Cox.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
So, American Beauty, I know when I first started reaching out to people, this was one that you almost immediately jumped at the opportunity to talk about. And part of it was because of what we've come to hear about Kevin Spacey over the past couple of years, but it is a worthwhile movie to discuss in a lot of different ways. And before we get too deep into the conversation, what was your, when you first saw the film, what was your initial impression of it?
The thing that blew me away is that the quality of the script, the quality of the story. This is a kind of movie that, this is the kind of movie that an actor would jump at because it has all of the elements. It's equal parts very funny, heartbreaking, dramatic, mysterious. It has. It's just, I remember just being blown away. I remember seeing the trailer, and I didn't know who Sam Mendes was. And at the time, this was the movie. I remember seeing the trailer, and I thought Kevin Spacey's going to win the Oscar for this because it had that kind of the trailer of wow, this is one that you really want to see. And then, of course, seeing Annette Bening, and this was really Chris Cooper's really big breakout in the mainstream. I had never seen Wes Bentley before, and Duvari and Thora Birch. This was kind of like her first adult role after doing. But I just knew watching this trailer that this was something that was going to be different and push boundaries and it does. It's a movie that it's hard to believe that 20 years since this movie, and it even with everything that has transpired with Kevin Spacey, it's still an extraordinary movie because I think it's one thing I always say. It's one of those movies that you watch and you laugh and you feel a little guilty about laughing because there's some of it that's just so incredibly wrong, but so incredibly smart, superbly acted. I think every actor in this movie, from Spacey to Peter Gallagher to Scott Bakula to Sam Robards, everybody has a great moment to shine. I mean,
Yeah.
Allison Janney is another one that comes to mind. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't say a lot, but like what she does in this movie is a prime example of. You just think of the end of like take a raincoat, like this
Right.
woman just been scared. I mean, and I think with that you have the quality of the script
Mm-hmm.
and the quality of Sam Mendes' brilliant direction.
Yeah. No, and this was Sam Mendes' first film as a director. He had
Yeah,
previously been best known for stage productions,
he
and
had directed Cabaret. That was his big,
yeah,
and he reimagined that and opened that up because of many people who knew the
hmm
original Broadway production and the movie. This was completely different, which he made it. He has an incredible talent of just having a way with a script and with actors. I mean, and if you look at the quality of look at all of his movies,
yeah,
there's just that always going through it. There's always high quality of writing and directing and acting.
right. No, and you're absolutely right. And no, this was a rewatch that I wasn't quite sure how I was going to react to it.
Yeah.
After given what we learned about Kevin Spacey and what has been alleged about Kevin Spacey in the past couple of years, and so this was a rewatch that was definitely not quite sure how I was going to feel about it. And I will say that I still think it's an exceptional film. I still think it's a fantastic film. It just really it held up extremely well.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, I also one of the things that struck me about it watching it now is that it I didn't it's like and when it first came out 20 years ago it's like I was entertained by it. I saw the dark humor in it. Even now I see the dark humor in it. I see the things about it that make it a really sharp satire on sort of suburban life and that
Yeah.
type of thing. But overall, I felt very uncomfortable about the film too, and it's to the film's credit that I felt uncomfortable because it's like I don't know how much I'm not sure how much I feel like I should be enjoying this because basically what we're watching is we're basically watching um we're basically watching two very dysfunctional families here
Hmm.
uh where there's a dominant personality as well as a subservient one, and it throws that dynamic is just throwing everything off, and basically everybody's playing an act. Everybody's playing a role, especially in
Everybody's
the
playing a part.
Burnham family. The one with Kevin Spacey and Annette
Hmm.
Bening. Now Chris Cooper and Allison Janney, their family is a little bit more. They're a little bit more. They're closed off, so they don't really have much. They don't really show themselves, reveal themselves to the outside world that much.
Yeah.
And then once if you do see them, like when Jane goes over there, you can see how dysfunctional they are.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and the amazing thing about about those two couples is that you really hit it on the head. It really is a look at suburban life that families like Carolyn Burnham, the Annette Bening character, presents herself as and has her family as this kind of Ozzie and Harriet.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is perfect on the outside, but behind closed doors, um, the dinner, the silences
Yeah.
during the dinner say so much. It's funny. It reminds me of like Ordinary People, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think Ordinary People is such an extraordinary film as
Yeah.
well. Because to the outside world, that family, the Donald Sutherland, Mary
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Moore, and Timothy Hutton, even in the wake of the tragedy that everyone knows happened to the family,
Yeah.
that how they're presented, they're all playing a part.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a scene at a party where Donald Sutherland's sitting on a steps with someone, and she asks, "How are things? How's Conrad doing?" He says, "Oh, he's great." And you know that
Mm-hmm.
even without it, you know that it's not. You know that it's a performance, but
Yeah.
that's his defense. I think the same thing is definitely at play here in American Beauty. In the case of the Chris Cooper and Allison Janney relationship, I think Chris Cooper is definitely of that old school 19 post World War War kind of father who was not affectionate
Yeah.
with their children. Went out, worked, came home, expected his dinner on the table, and he is so terrified Allison Janney's character
Mm-hmm.
that she is immediately just shell shocked and just subservient.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's not even there in a way, there just to serve him. Whereas in the case of Lester and Carolyn, Carolyn makes more money. Lester is in a job that he hates. Not necessarily shell shocked, but I think he I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
And then I think as time goes on, I think he feels revitalized by seeing the Mina Suvari character, thinking of like she pays him a little bit of attention and he feels revitalized.
Yeah.
And there's a role reversal. He gets his confidence, but at the same time, it's so wrong because obviously, she's
Yeah.
a high school senior. So
Yes.
this an interesting thing about this movie also. This movie was, at the height of like the independent movement of when movies like, when Tarantino first started coming out with Reservoir Dogs and when the Coens really hit their stride. Those movies, I think, like with the quality of the dialogue, that they could have moments of like humor, comedy, and the violence, all of that. The trend, I think, started with Reservoir Dogs and went into movies like this. And I'm just thinking also off the top of my head, oh God, what's the Kate Winslet movie that Jackie Earle Haley had his wonderful comeback?
Little Children.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Like, I think without Tarantino and the subversive kind of scripts that dared to go to those dark places, I think without that movement and that style of screenplay, which now is everywhere, and of course in TV shows and stuff like that, there wouldn't have been an American Beauty. Like I don't, and not in the sense that I don't know if a movie would have been made because this movie is a gamble. Because it's a movie that it deals with a lot of subjects, that in 1999 were taboo.
Yeah.
And of course, many are still taboo, but now, so the fact that I forget what studio released
it. DreamWorks. It was DreamWorks.
So DreamWorks, but they knew that this was going to be a big film. Yeah. At the time, Kevin Spacey was primarily for about 10, 15 years or so, had been primarily a stage and supporting actor. And I think after Usual Suspects and Outbreak and The Negotiator, The Negotiator was a test because I think that was the first film that he kind of was the co-lead. And
L.A. Confidential too,
in
that same area.
Of course. Yeah. L.A. Confidential was another one. But this was a gamble. And somebody asked me the other day, and I don't know how you feel about this. Is this movie, is it a comedy or is it a drama?
I think I look at it as I look at it as a dark comedy. I think that's really I think it certainly has a lot of weight to it, dramatic weight to it. but I think fundamentally it probably is more of a dark comedy that is and really has a subversive sense of humor in the same vein that you mentioned the Coen brothers and Tarantino and stuff like that.
Fargo and all of that.
Yeah. And so I do think, and I definitely see where you're coming from as far as like this American Beauty sort of caught this wave of this independent style basically starting to become mainstream in terms of the way people were writing, the way people were like, you know, for a long time. And really it goes with the sea change that started to happen around this time with TV too, where TV, especially with the cable networks getting in on original TV programming, like Sopranos started this year, and then you had 6 Feet Under with Alan Ball, who wrote this amazing script. You had this change in the way people were writing for popular culture. And so, and people were attuned to that, and people were really excited about that. And so it was natural to see it start to happen in more and more mainstream films. I mean, you know, like we said, this is a DreamWorks production. And so, I mean, at the time, DreamWorks was a major studio. Or, I mean, they were still trying to be a major studio.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that, but ultimately, I think this is, I think it's more, I think it's ultimately wanting, I think, to be more dark comedy than drama. But I mean, there's certainly enough dramatic weight to it. I mean, you mentioning Ordinary People was a very good example of this, of the same type of story where it's basically a family. The tensions in a dysfunctional family coming undone.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, one of the things that I really that I recognized at the time when American Beauty came out, but even recognized even more watching it again recently, was the fact that I don't know what it was in 1999, but there was a wealth of films that American Beauty is one of the best examples of, and there are great examples throughout the year of movies where the main characters, the way they see reality is basically it's basically changing in pretty profound ways. I mean, the movies that I identified at the time in the same vein were Fight Club and Office Space, which I mean are completely different which are completely different ideas, but they're also this idea of men trying to take back a freedom that they feel like commercialism and consumerism has taken away from them, and corporatism has taken away from them. But really, if you think about it, like you could put Being John Malkovich in that same type of area. You could put The Matrix in that same type of area.
But anything that Noah Baumbach has, Squid and the Whale, or Margot at the Wedding. I mean, and I think one of the things that American Beauty did is that it made it okay for movies to be dark.
Yeah.
Dark humor, and that because a lot of the movies that we mentioned, I mean, a movie like Office Space is brilliant, but I think there's the relatability. We've all worked for a Bill Lumbergh. It's a different attack on it, but when you really think about it, like the character that, oh God, what is the name? Peter, who plays Peter in Office Space. I forget his name.
Ron Livingston.
Ron Livingston. Yeah. Thank you. Is what he's doing is terrible. Is ludicrous, but you cheer him on. But it's like the Seinfeld mentality. It's like we laugh at these characters, but if we knew any of them, we would be like, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to a different diner. But I think there was a trend And thankfully, because, prior to that, I mean, it was getting into that a little bit in the 70s. Like, I mean, I always say the golden age of American film is from around when Bonnie and Clyde up to Raging Bull, 67 to 1980.
Yeah.
In there, the attacks on kinds of films, and the word that is often used is gritty. Movies like The Friends of Eddie Coyle or The French Connection, that you really, I mean, across 110th Street, is that you could smell the garbage in New York. You can, you could tell, it's the seediness. Midnight Cowboy, same thing. I think when Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and American Beauty and Juno and Squid and the Whale and many, 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 many other films, being John Malkovich, Adaptation is another one, is that they were able to craft screenplays were crafted that showed the good, the bad, and the ugly of characters, which is what life is, which is what Billy Wilder had been trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch a movie like Sunset Boulevard, and that movie is as relevant today. That movie is more relevant to me, I think, than All About Eve. I think All About Eve is a bit of an overrated film. I don't think it's aged very well. But Sunset Boulevard, it's frightening how, if that movie was made today, they wouldn't have to change a thing.
No.
I don't think.
No, I mean, you'd have to change things based on period, but the basic story structure would be fundamentally the same.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's every bit as relevant now as it was then. And, I mean, another Billy Wilder film that I know American Beauty was compared to a lot was The Apartment.
Yeah.
With Jack Lemmon. And same basic idea of, guy who realizes that his life is... He feels like his life has lost a bit of its meaning. And trying to figure out how to maneuver that.
And, that another movie, The Apartment, that was billed as a comedy. That movie is not a comedy.
Yeah.
It's a really, another film relevant, especially in the wake of everything that's going on now with the Me Too movement, is that movie is most definitely not a comedy. I think it's like what Dustin Hoffman said. Dustin Hoffman never intended Tootsie to be a comedy.
Yeah.
Because of... I think the attack on it was different. But the thing about The Apartment is that movie is ultimately very sad because in the end that Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine are not going to make it. They're not going to couple.
Yeah.
I always equate the trajectory of Lemmon's career. As you may know, I'm a Lemon nut. I've seen it. If you think about, and I guess Spacey sort of has these kind of parallels, but if you took the character in The Apartment and he becomes Harry Stoner in Save the Tiger, a failure, who eventually becomes Shelley Levine in Glengarry Glen Ross. You just see the trajectory over 3 decades of this broken man. It's something about, and those are movies that, I mean, Save the Tiger was a movie that was made, I think actors got paid scale. Nobody wanted to touch it because nobody wanted to make a movie about a garment guy who, who's basically close to going to jail for embezzlement. I mean, but American Beauty was a gamble. I remember when the Oscars, I never saw a campaign for the Academy Awards like I saw for American Beauty. Because Spacey was not the favorite. The favorite that year was Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I had to look up who was nominated for Best Actor that year because I had forgotten. And so Kevin Spacey won. You had Denzel Washington for The Hurricane, who was the other. He
was the favorite because he had won the Golden Globe.
Favorite. And then you had Russell Crowe for The Insider, who a lot of people feel like should have won.
Brilliant performance.
And then you had Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story. It was fantastic. And then Sean Penn for Sweet and Lowdown.
Right.
I had to look that up because I had forgotten who the Best Actor nominees were that year. it really, like, thinking back on those performances and rewatching some of those movies, I might think otherwise, but I would still give Kevin Spacey the Oscar for that because it's
I
such a
think so.
strong work.
Well, it's such a strong work, and at that time, you remember, he was riding high. He went from this to this lauded production of The Iceman Cometh, which he was doing, and he did on Broadway. So he was hot, really, at that. And I think the Academy. And I think it's also, we've heard the stories about that he campaigned, talking to, with lobbying Gregory Peck and Jack Lemmon and, all of his Academy friends. I don't know how that works or helps or what have you, but I think, but he was not the favorite that night. I think the film may have been. I think The Insider was a long shot, I think.
Yeah, there was doubt leading up to Oscar night. Like the acting, I think the only real, let's see, looking back on it. Yeah, I mean, really, so looking at the rest of the acting categories, Michael Caine won for Cider House Rules. He was probably the prohibitive favorite there.
I think Tom Cruise was, but I think Michael. I mean,
that was another big category because you had
that was a good category.
Talented Miss Ripley for Jude Law, Tom Cruise for Magnolia, Haley Joel Osment for Sixth Sense, and Michael Clark Duncan for Green Mile.
Any one of them,
Now, Best Actress, it was basically between Hilary Swank for Boys Don't Cry, who was the winner, and Annette Bening. And you weren't really sure who was going to win up until that night.
Well, you know what the Academy Awards does, and I wonder if this is going to happen in this year, is that, Lady Gaga is nominated for Song and for Lead Actress.
Right.
I think she's a shoo-in. Her and Mark Ronson, they're a shoo-in. That they figure, well, she's going to have an Oscar, and that many are feeling that it's between her and Glenn Close.
Yeah.
And that maybe Glenn Close is going. I mean, The Wife, I thought she was outstanding in. I thought,
I still haven't seen The Wife.
It's wonderful in that it's definitely very smartly done, but you will see just subtlety. Like, it's not what Glenn Close says, it's what she doesn't say.
Right.
I mean, and I think also the Academy acknowledges careers.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges, I love Jeff Bridges. I liked Crazy Heart. I didn't think it was his greatest performance, but the Academy does do that. Yeah. They acknowledge the career. And I think she's very deserving of it, but I think Melissa McCarthy, I think I would be happy with any one of them. I think Melissa McCarthy's probably a long shot just because I don't know if many people saw that film. But it's and on one hand, it's kind of nice that there's potentially going to be surprises. I don't know if Roma is the guaranteed. I don't know if that's a lock now.
I really like this is probably a year with more doubt in terms of what could end up winning the Oscars than I can remember in a long time.
Because usually, tonight is the Screen Actors Guild Awards and all of the Critics Awards are happening. So by the time the Oscars happen, and the ratings have been down considerably the last couple of years, people don't care, I think, because it's already, the Golden Globes were kind of I think people were genuinely shocked by the reactions, or shocked by the results. But, who knows? I mean, it's interesting. It's nice to be surprised. I mean, I think the last time I was surprised was when Adrian Brody won over.
That was for The Pianist. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was going to be Nicholson. I thought Nicholson was going to take get number 4. But I mean, a delightful shock as everybody was. You never know with these things. But
and it's funny because of the fact that I remember one of the things that when American Beauty, American Beauty one, it was basically a lot of people sort of framed it in terms of DreamWorks versus Miramax, because
Yeah,
the previous year Shakespeare in Love had
Shakespeare
beaten
in
Saving
Love.
Private
Yeah.
Ryan, and this year in 1999 Miramax had Cider House Rules,
hmm Which is a
and
fine film. I mean, it's not
it's a
a
good film. It's
yeah.
not
I mean,
really
it's not. I mean, it's not a movie that I like. I remember watching it because I like the cast and I like Lasse
yeah.
Hallström. Uh, the book, if you're a John Irving fan, but it's a fine movie.
Yeah, I mean it really I don't know that it necessarily deserved all of the recognition it got that year, but I mean it was like okay, it's especially when you consider so many of the other films that
Oh yeah,
were
you can
made
count on
that year,
me, and
and
yeah, you can count on me. Requiem for a Dream,
yeah,
and of course, I mean, when Julia Roberts, well, the next year won for Aaron Brockovich. I mean,
yeah,
that was
that was all the next year. You Can Count on Me and Aaron
yeah,
Brockovich and stuff like that. But I mean, just looking at 1999, I mean, you could have easily put Magnolia in there, or you could have
yeah.
easily put Talented Mr. Ripley,
Mm.
or there are any number of ways you could have had the Best Picture category that year. Um, it's one of those things that it just differs from different years. Years are weird. This
Well, and with the Oscars, I mean, it's many times, you make your predictions, and it's kind of like the nominations come out, and there weren't many surprises
yeah.
because, I mean, I was a little. I mean, I liked Black Panther. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very entertaining film,
Hmm.
but I don't think it deserved a Best Picture nomination. I mean, the movie has made what
Yeah, made seven
$700 million.
hundred million.
It doesn't need an Academy Award. It's already won.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like. But if a movie can inspire kids and get them interested in the movies and things like that and messages, and
yeah.
I mean all for it. I mean it
Mm,
was very, very well done, very entertaining, but
yeah.
you know
I mean,
it-
I do think it is one of Marvel's best movies, if not their best movie as far as the MCU goes. I mean this year I could very well see Spike Lee being picture and director for Black Klansman. I mean, I
that
could
was
see that
it was
happening.
extraordinary. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's going to happen now. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think if anything he has a shot at is the writing, the screenplay award. I don't know if I mean I think the easy money is on Alfonso Cuarón, just
Yeah,
because
for director. Yeah,
I would. The one movie that of the screeners movies that I saw this year was Vice. I think that was the most underwhelming. It was. I don't know. Have you seen
I
Vice?
haven't
Or
had a chance. Vice and Green Book are actually the only two I have not seen of the Best
well,
Picture nominees.
yeah,
But
Green Book is a fine film. The
yeah,
problem is that I don't like the Green Book and Vice, in my opinion, have the same problem. Is that they don't tell us anything new.
yeah,
The Green Book, I mean, and people have compared it to Driving Miss Daisy. There's a little bit of that element,
hmm
but the thing is, it was very, very well done. I
yeah,
mean, kudos for Peter Farrelly for stepping up his game and doing something completely different, and
yeah,
it's marvelously acted.
hmm
But the general story, it doesn't. It's there were things that are predictable, like okay, they're going to have this kind of odd couple kind of
right,
on the road thing.
right,
They're going to encounter this. They're going to encounter that. But I mean, it was competently done. It's not by no means a bad film. But again, with the criticism of when Driving Miss Daisy won the Academy Awards up against Do the Right Thing,
yeah,
is anybody going to be talking about Driving Miss Daisy 30 years later?
yeah,
No, and
exactly.
no one's going to be talking about Green Book 30 years
Yeah,
later. I think the same thing with Vice. Vice is competently done. Adam McKay is probably he takes an attack on it like Sidney Lumet and Patty Chayefsky did with Network.
hmm
And it's really for the performances, but it doesn't tell us anything
Yeah.
new about Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
But I mean, Christian Bale, of course, is extraordinary. I loved his Golden Globe speech, but again, he might win.
Yeah.
I think because of the physical transformation, but then again, he might not, because who wants to reward Dick Cheney? So it's one of those things. It was a very, very good year for movies.
Yeah.
But who knows? But more on American Beauty. This is one we could talk about.
Let's go back to American Beauty, because but the thing is, it's like when you're talking about American Beauty, the Oscars are going to come up, and I mean, there's always going to be comparison contrast with Oscar years, and I mean, certainly this year is no different. And I mean, so the conversation that we're having is, I mean, just as worthwhile as just talking about the film in general. As far as the film, I mean, obviously I think the big thing that was probably the most controversial aspect of American Beauty then, and certainly is now in light of Kevin Spacey, is the dynamic between him and Mena Suvari as Angela. And it was funny because Mena Suvari was just coming off of American Pie, which had come out that summer.
She had a smart agent, because from American Pie to do something completely different like this. The sad fact is, I really can't think of another movie that she's...
It's been a while since she's really been in anything significant, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because she was marvelous in the film. I mean,
she absolutely is.
Not an easy part to play. I mean, the nudity and all of it's tough. It's tough, and I thought she was marvelous. Same thing with Thora Birch and all of the they were teenagers. They were not you believed that they were legitimate teenagers, who were pissed off and frustrated and alone, basically. I think one of the things about this movie, I mean, I remember when everything first started coming out about Spacey, when Bill Cosby, I think he had his Kennedy Center or Mark Twain Prize recipient. And then there was all of this talk about the Academy should rescind Roman Polanski's Oscars, Kevin Spacey's Oscars. When you get into things like that, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to give it up to the runner-up, like Bryce Waterhouse. But I think what's happening now is that Kevin Spacey, in the court of public opinion, he's already lost. He's never going to work. Yeah. I don't think he can ever work again. A couple of months ago, I would have thought, given time, Louis C.K. could have come back, but I think he's kind of blown that. And he didn't take the time to really just be out of the public eye. Yeah. And of course, I mean, I think it was Christmas Day that I saw that video of Spacey doing the cards.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, and that's one of the things that I'm thinking of writing about. I'm working on writing about for Sonic Cinema, an article on that, where it's like, one of the things that I've noticed, especially on like Twitter and stuff like that, is, if you're going to basically, if you're going to not watch movies or care about movies that have any association directly or indirectly to people who've been accused of things that Kevin Spacey has, Roman Polanski has, you're going to run out of movies. So it's like you kind of have to pick your battles. And it's like, and like you said, as far as the rescinding of the Oscars, it's like, what is that going to accomplish?
I don't see what the point of that. I mean, for Cosby, all of the terrible things that he did, the rescinding of awards, the awards, it doesn't matter, because he's got he's what, 88, 89 years old.
Yeah.
Like, you can rescind every Emmy or whatever he's won. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's like, the Michael Jackson documentary that has come out, which I haven't seen yet. I mean,
No.
I don't know what kind of effect that's going to have, but in a way, it doesn't matter. He's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, people can stop listening to his music or what have you, or same thing with R. Kelly. I mean, I don't know what, like, taking away an award that was given 20, 25 years ago. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, people are going to forget about the awards and stuff like that. It's like, it'll be mentioned when, in their obituary and stuff like that. But that's really what it boils down to. It's like, you're not going, it sort of, there's not much you can, it's like, there are a lot of other Oscars that I think are a little bit more egregious that I'd like to see change, but, watching the movie again, I don't know if I would necessarily say Spacey's one of them. I mean, he was very, very good, and he was exceptional in American Beauty. He was exceptional in The Usual Suspects.
And the thing is also, Kevin Spacey, the man, is accused of this.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey playing Lester Burnham, he was giving a performance. Mm-hmm. So the Oscar is for the performance, not for...
Right.
It wasn't a documentary. So
I think that's one of the things that's sort of... I was not quite sure how I was going to feel about it rewatching it, because it had been a while since I had seen American Beauty. It was that relationship with that dynamic he has with Angela, the Manu Saveri character in it, that I wasn't sure how I was going to react to it. And watching it, it's like the fantasy sequences, which are very obviously fantasy sequences in the context of the movie, are what really make that uncomfortable. If you take out the fantasy sequences in that storyline, you can very plainly see that she's very knowing of the relation of what she inspires in somebody like Lester. But you also see, and one of the things that really struck me is at the very end of the movie, when you think that they're actually going to do something, and all of a sudden that twist happens where it's like, oh, by the way, I'm not actually who you think I am.
It was all an act.
But you also see, but that also inspires a side of Lester that we haven't seen throughout the entire film, which is more
snapped out of it. I think he was living kind of a fantasy world, and I think at that moment, it's a wonderful moment. That's a wonderful scene, because he snaps out of it like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I think he was back to reality.
Yeah.
I
would absolutely agree with that.
And the thing is, you think of all of the elements. One of the things also that really makes this movie pop is the music. Thomas Newman's, and it's been oft parodied, and but that's a wonderful dramatic score. It really adds to it. That wonderful opening and and all of that. Like, it brings you into this, because it has this kind of, there's a little bit of like, it's mischievous.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something, like something's going to happen that it's going to knock you off your socks.
Well, that's Thomas Newman. I mean, that's the way he's scored.
I love Thomas Newman.
If you, you look at something like Finding Nemo, you look at something like
Road to Perdition,
you look at something like Wall-E, and it's like, it's that same. Now, I mean, it's that same sort of sound, but but he's showing off different things each time. And I absolutely adore his score in this movie. I was crushed when it didn't win the Oscar, because I loved it. It was one of my favorite scores.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things, exactly what you said, the very beginning of that score. It really, with the narration from Spacey's character, from Lester, that we that sort of clues us in on what we're going to see, but not quite, because I mean, you sort of wonder whether it's like the way he, because it basically starts out by saying, I'm dead, and this is what's happening, but it's like you don't necessarily, you sort of lose sight of that for a minute until it comes back at the end. But yeah,
I love that ending, the ending sequence. How that's all.
Yeah,
it shows like his grandmother's hands and the car, and like that there was a time when he was happy.
Yeah,
he had joy, and I think he felt. I mean, it's like you see like he felt that joy again the moment before he was killed.
Yeah,
and I don't think he had felt that for the duration of the movie.
Oh no, and that's the thing. It's like the entire movie is basically him trying to recapture that joy. And he thinks, and to a certain extent, and for a lot of it, he thinks, if I could get somebody like Angela to recognize me, it's like, well, that will do it. Or quitting my job,
or if I smoke pot, or if I work out, if I do, all of these things, and anybody who battles depression or has low self-esteem, I think that's what people connected on as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it clicked. It clicked with audiences because it was funny, it was heartfelt, and I think we were able to kind of not look past, but and not even accept. I don't even know what the word is, but like feel empathy. That even in the midst of the thoughts that were rolling around in Lester's head, I think that's ultimately why people connected to the movie.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
People had empathy for him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, again, it was one of these movies, as in that year where it was about people. It was this idea that life is beating me down. How do I get out of this funk that life has put me in? And you look at something like Fight Club, that takes one way of looking at it, and it's a very destructive way of looking at it. You look at Office Space, it takes the absurd way out of it, because like you said earlier, it's like if you worked with somebody like Peter, like if they didn't get fired for what they were doing,
from him in the office.
Like, if they didn't get fired for what they were doing, you'd be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we empathize with him because he as the main character, we understand sort of why he feels the way he does, and it's the same thing with Lester.
Yeah, it's like we can, I think you watch a movie like that, or you watch Peter in Office Space, and you're like, well, I'd like to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I often cite as an example. There's the scene in Love Actually where Hugh Grant, as the prime minister with Billy Bob Thornton standing there, basically tells the president off. Some look foolish. And I said, well, that's a nice idea. Yeah. We'd all like to tell him off. But there's consequences. There's the aftermath of that, where it's, there's no way that, maybe the guy that we currently have in the office, but like, tell him off all you want. But like, and I think that's the thing about, movies is that, it's what we would aspire to be. But if we ever did it, we'd be like, well, God, I deserve to be fired.
Yeah. Oh, no, I would never act the same. I would never deliberately act the way Peter does in my job. I mean, I don't know if you did, it's like you'd expect to get fired on the spot.
This one thing that American Beauty has a lot of, they have a lot of moments of unspoken moments, like of the actors, and I think every actor really has one in the movie that say like pages of dialogue. The whole sequence of Annette Bening cleaning the house, and not making the sale, and telling herself that she's not good enough, or Chris Cooper. Just all of them. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, many movies have always done that, but this one, it always, and every time I watch the movie, it always sticks out at me that, like, God, they're all different levels of unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's depression or whether it's lack of confidence or what have you. You know,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really sells this movie, especially, is that we could relate. I mean, we've all had those, if you know, those dinners with your family where
Mm-hmm.
the tension is there, and if anybody says the wrong thing,
Yeah.
you know, someone's going to throw a plate of asparagus at the wall.
Yeah. Oh no, and absolutely right. I mean, I think that's where, you know, and you look at you look at the character of Ricky, the Wes Bentley character in the movie, and it's like he's basically, he and Jane, Thor Birch's characters, they basically are the ones who see through everybody else's bullshit.
And they're the ones who I think they make it.
Yeah, and
I think they do.
Yeah, and ultimately they're probably the healthiest couple in that entire film. I mean, other than Scott Bakula and Sam Robards, but
and Peter Gallagher, because Peter Gallagher, his character, he's great. He's great in everything.
Yeah,
but he knows exactly who he is, and there's that confidence about. I mean, yeah, he knows exactly who he is. But and Wes Bentley and yeah, I think make it because they do see through the BS.
Yeah,
you know, at all.
I mean, they see how everybody else's actions are affecting other people. Like Ricky sees and is defenseless to how his father, being the way he is, has beaten down his mother, and you know, Jane.
How everybody plays a part.
Yeah, and Jane sees just how full of, you know, unreal confidence or unbelievable pep and confidence Caroline is, and it's like she realizes that it's like it's all an act.
They're all playing a part, and that's and you know, we know that we've all gone to parties where you see, you know, a husband and a wife, you know, they're putting on an act. The reality is that it's obvious, and it's obvious to, you know, it's obvious to everyone, but they keep the facade up. You know, I mean, Chris Cooper should have been acknowledged. I think. I know he was for a Screen Actors Guild Award, but
I think he was nominated for SAG that year.
But he and you know, talking about him is that, you know, this repressed military man, you know, who carries on this kind of, you know, the military's got the haircut, you know, he still addresses himself in his military, his ranking, but he has this secret that he thinks that he can let it out, and he's not going to be found out, so he has to do.
Yeah.
No, it's an extraordinary movie, and I think that, you know, I mean, there are some people who have said, like, "Oh, I can't watch this. The movie's not the same, you know, because of whatever happened." And I said, "Well, you know, you have to remember, Kevin Spacey's not the first person in the history of Hollywood. You know,
No.
Is anyone never going to watch a Charlie Chaplin movie again because of everything that happened with him, or you know, with or who was the or is anyone never going to watch a Lana Turner movie again because her daughter married, you know, manslaughter? I mean, it's a movie. I mean, I think you know, and you can separate. I think American Beauty might be different because of what Spacey is accused of, and but the thing is, he never acts on it in the movie. You know, he has the thought, but I honestly don't know what I mean. The seeing him in court. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know
Yeah.
that what's going to happen is that I think, criminal court cases. I think they want to deal with Harvey Weinstein. They want to deal with Kevin Spacey. I don't know if they want to. I mean, I haven't heard anything about Dustin Hoffman since, frankly,
No,
since John
no,
Oliver
it's
front of
yeah. Yeah,
or
I don't know
Morgan
about that. I
Freeman.
mean, I haven't really heard about that. And it's one of those things where it's like ultimately I think part of what it just kind of depend I think part of what makes it difficult for some people with certain movies like with Kevin Spacey and American Beauty is how much does how much does the film sort of reflect what we're finding out about? Like Woody Allen is a great example.
Yeah,
Like I completely understand why people would not necessarily want to watch a Woody Allen film again because he puts so much of himself into his movies, especially the ones that he stars in. But
yeah,
he also and if what you know about his personal life creeps you out that much, I can completely understand not necessarily wanting to watch some of those movies again.
I do take issue, however, with some of the actors who they've made a movie with him recently, and I don't know who the actors are. I mean, I don't want to say,
Yeah.
but then they come back and they say, "I regret working with him." And my thing is,
Mm.
well, no one put a gun to your head saying you had to work with him. You
Well,
wanted to work with him. I mean, I don't know. It was
well, and
strange.
especially with Woody Allen, it's like all of that has been known for like none of
25
this is
years.
new really with him. Like
Yeah.
it's all been known for a couple of decades now. And so it's just been a matter of how much credence you um give that compared to other situations. I mean,
Hmm.
his is arguably it for me. It's always been arguably the most complicated one because it really boils down to just one instance and a series of events during that time.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Polanski's another one. Yeah.
it's hard to really know what to make of that.
Hmm.
So,
And Polanski's another one.
mhm.
Obviously he's never going to set foot in the U.S. again.
No,
But the thing is, people still clamor to work with him
yeah,
because separating. He is. I mean, he is a brilliant director,
hmm,
but like separating. But that's the thing is, I don't know if we, and I don't know if we'll ever know in the case of Kevin Spacey, Roman Polanski, even Bill Cosby, and
yeah.
not obviously not condoning anything if they did do it. But I don't think we're ever going to know the full story. I don't think we're going to ever know. I mean, there was a review that came out yesterday that said the Michael Jackson documentary paints a picture that Michael Jackson did indeed
Yeah.
abuse children. Well, it's an opinion. I mean, that's evidence.
Hmm.
It really I mean, because it's like I don't think we're ever going to know. I think because it's and the only in the case of Kevin Spacey and Anthony Rapp, the only two people who really know what happened are
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey and Anthony Rapp, and but I think it's all in the details. But I think it's good that these people are being brought to task for these actions if they did
Hmm.
happen. I think either way, Kevin Spacey can never. I don't think he's ever going to get another job again. Certainly not
Yeah.
in this country.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's if he does, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him. Um.
well, I think him posting that video. This is the thing I joked and I said, who directed and who edited that
Yeah.
video? Like who did Kevin Spacey call him up and say, "Hey, I got a great idea. I'm already drowning here. Let's drown a little
I
deeper and
mean,
get you up to edit this."
he had directed before, so I mean,
Yeah,
I doubt. I mean, he's the one who actually directed it, but
not like
I
he
mean,
called David Fincher and
he had directed before, so I mean, yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I think whether whether a person is able to. I think one of the big things with issues like this is whether a person is able to step back and sort of at least acknowledge that um, that what they may or may not have done is wrong, and
Yeah.
to understand why those actions hurt people. Like Louis C.K., it's like he's joking about like it's nothing, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how. So you took a year off, and then you're all of a
Not
sudden just
even, I
gonna,
think. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that's one of those things where it's like, I think if you have somebody who like comes back and sort of realizes that, and I think that's part of the issue with a lot of people with when it comes to people like Spacey, like Weinstein, and like Louis C.K., where it's like, are you, you know, are you at least going to acknowledge that people? I mean, Louis C.K. admitted it. Like it. That's the thing. He admitted what he did. He acknowledged
And
what he did. He just isn't really showing much in the way of
enlightenment and I don't know if
understanding why it
remorse,
was
but
wrong. Yeah.
well, and you know, I think I mean he's a kind of comic that does come out and talk about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
The thing is, if I am an audience member and and he comes in and I'm seeing this and you're on the edge of your seat wondering, oh God, what are you going to say? Like, are you going to address it? On one hand, he's got balls for doing it because it's hard enough being a comedian. But at the same time, I personally think it's the wrong attack.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's like you said, it's telling the world that you haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
From it. I mean, and now we're at a time where comedians. I think Chris Rock or someone came out and said, comedians can't even talk about taboo subjects anymore. It's like maybe not. I mean, like for the time being, because it's a tense time.
I mean, I feel like it boils down to sort of pick your battles and sort of it is pick your battles. It's like I mean I'm somebody who I do feel like a lot of I do think people are too PC a lot of times. It's like I understand the whole I understand why people would be politically correct, but at the same time I feel like at a certain point you're going a little too far with it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's at the point we're at. I'm not quite sure, but it's one of those things where it's like I think how you approach it matters almost as much as whether you approach it or not.
I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I think when Louis C.K. first came on and did his but see, it's not his style. If he went to the Comedy Cellar and went up and apologized,
oh yeah,
that's just not his style. His style, I think, is kind of brash and kind of in your face. Not afraid to go there. But just the timing of it was just, I was like, oh no, go away. Yeah. Take another 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's my thing is, with American Beauty, it's still I have no issues with. I mean, I can still watch it and acknowledge it and still see that. I really think it's a masterpiece. I think the writing, the cinematography. I think it was I don't know if that was a Conrad Hall.
Yeah, it was.
Who was like the master.
Yeah.
The performances from top to bottom, how it's lit, the coloring. I mean, like when the opening shot of them, like it just has like a suburbia and the leaves and the coloring and all of that. I mean, it's a movie that now I think if everything with Kevin Spacey hadn't been happening, it's still a movie that people would have been talking about
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I was like I said, I mean, I was nervous going into a rewatch for it, but I'm glad I did because it's like there's a lot about the movie that I had actually forgotten at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had completely forgotten Peter Gallagher's character and that subplot and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It'd been so long that it's like, oh wow, some of this completely, and I forgot some of the elements of the subplot with Mendes and the
Mm-hmm.
turn at the end, where it's like, and I think that's one of the things about great films. And I would say that, like you, I would say American Beauty is a great film. It still holds up as one of the best movies of that year.
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand why it would make people uncomfortable, and like I argued in my review recently, my written review recently, I think that's kind of what it's going for. And I mean, it's you look at the tagline of the movie. The tagline of the movie is "Look closer,"
Yeah.
and I think this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things about it that are movie like, and where he blackmails his boss and stuff like that. There are a lot of things that would
Mm-hmm.
really only work in a movie that couldn't work at all in real life. But at the same time, I mean, I think there's a lot of insight into how it is to try to navigate the adult world and try to manage being, living a life that you think you're supposed to be happy in, and
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to make yourself happy.
I think a good movie like this, like The Apartment, it puts a mirror up to the audience and hints that these characters are familiar to you, and they even hint that you may have some of their characteristics. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the Annette Bening character, especially, everyone wants to succeed. Everyone wants
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, be the
Yeah.
top dog. In the case of Angela, everyone wants to be admired and acknowledged and looked at, um, you know, and be admired.
Yeah.
The thing about the Wes Bentley and the Thora Birch characters is that they are looked at as not caring, but the reality is that they care very deeply. They just have a different journey. They just
Mm-hmm.
have a different outlook on things, and it's very
Well, they're
mature.
more introverted. They're more
Yes.
introverted. They're more the way they care. They just don't acknowledge it the way that other people do. The way Caroline does, or Angela does, or
Mm.
Lester does. And it's like even Lester is a little bit introverted, at least at the start. You sort of feel like because he's just living this boring life, and it's like it's only because of the narration that it's like we get an idea as to what his real feelings are. And then more and more as the film progresses, we start to see him become more extrovert and realize that it's like this is what I need to do in
Yeah,
order
it's
to
the rebirth.
be
Yeah.
happy.
Well, and like you wonder. There's always like a charge, like a switch, like. And for Spacey, when Lester started to like emerge as this kind of new Lester, was when he went in and tried to blackmail his
Yeah.
boss. But I think also, I'm trying to think in the context of the movie. I think when he meets Wes Bentley's character
Yes.
and smokes pot,
Yeah.
I think that was like what, like, and he even says, "Wow, you're my hero. You're my new," like, because
Mm-hmm.
there's just this. You could see it like a switch of like, oh my god, like
Mm-hmm.
you can do that. You can stick it to the man, I guess.
Yeah.
Basically, it's it makes you want to watch it again. I mean, it's because there are so many very striking scenes all throughout the movie. I mean, it's well paced. There's never a moment in the movie where I felt bored. Like, oh, they could have cut that. They could have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crafted.
Mm-hmm.
It's crafted wonderfully. Um, Now, I mean, when you think about it now, I mean, it was a movie that it was destined to win. I think it won Best Picture, Best Director, Actor. I would have liked to.
Screenplay, and I think
Yeah, I would have liked
editing
to have
was the other
seen.
one.
I would have liked to have seen Annette Bening win, but Hilary Swank, and that was another one that, I was an unstoppable,
Mm-hmm.
you
And
know,
she's just
movie.
fantastic in the movie.
And it's a
And
hard, like American Beauty. It's a movie. It's a different attack on things, obviously, but it's a very, very hard movie to watch.
yeah,
That I think the trend of like making movies that are the dare to go and attack these subjects.
yeah,
The movie about, I mean, I think one of the best performances of the last 25 years was Charlize Theron in Monster,
mm-hmm.
playing Aileen Wuornos. Um, and just you get a glimpse into her very, very sad life. It doesn't change, or one does not condone her actions,
yeah,
but a product of her life, and that's that she felt that she had no other choice, that she
yeah.
felt that she was victimized and under attack. Um, I like movies like that. Those are the kinds of movies that I do, like movies that are a little off the beaten track.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I said it to you. I think the movie Doll It Up. I don't know. I mean, you get so many movies, but I think I had sent it to you a couple of weeks ago.
You have, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but
But
it is up next in my queue. So,
oh, cool. But those are the kinds of projects that I'm looking for, like
mm-hmm.
scripts that projects that scare me a little bit.
yeah,
Think things that are scary, because, and it comes down to with Boys Don't Cry and American Beauty and Monster, the one thing a lot of them all have in common is the quality of the writing.
yeah,
Is that they deal with very, very dark subjects, but they're not. It's not done cheesy.
mm-hmm.
It's not done melodramatic. It's done very, very smart. That you feel empathy.
yeah,
All of them. You feel empathy for Aileen Wuornos, even when you know that she killed
mm-hmm.
many innocent people. But that you feel empathy for her. That you hope that she had found some peace when in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean you're absolutely right. I mean, especially with Boys Don't Cry, American Beauty, it's like I think one of the things that really stands out about 1999 in general is the fact that you had this convergence of studio resources and independent talent and independent stories. Like something like American Beauty 5 years ago would have been a Miramax film.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been like a DreamWorks production and major release. It would have been a movie that started off slow and then, platformed eventually to a wider release.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Being John Malkovich, you look at you look at Three Kings, David O. Russell's film. You look at Straight Story, which was produced by Disney. It's like
mm-hmm.
you had a lot of filmmakers who otherwise would have been a few years ago would have been relegated to art houses and independent films, and they're given this freedom by studios who are willing to take a chance on something.
Yeah.
And I mean that's one of the things that I think that's so interesting about this year. I mean, and a friend of mine makes a case for 2001 being an even better year for movies, and he's not. If you look at the movies from that year, it's not entirely wrong, because you have Mulholland Drive, you have Amelie, you have Royal Tenenbaums, you have a bunch of movies that sort of took what we saw in this year in 1999 and just expanded it further.
Yeah.
And challenged.
I would agree with that. Let's see who else. You had Tenenbaums. You had what else was 2001?
You had AI. You had Spielberg's AI.
Uh-huh.
You had what else? I mean, Beautiful Mind won Best Picture that year, which it was.
I don't think that movie has aged well.
Yeah.
that's an example of like the Academy. I'm like, okay, Ron Howard's been around for a long time. He made a very, very good film, not a,
Yeah.
not a movie that, it's kind of like, you see a movie once and it's like, okay, I saw it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like I was like that with Borat. I was like, okay, I saw it. I don't need to see it again. It's not a movie. It's not like a Cuckoo's Nest where it's like, oh God, well, I'll watch this for 10 minutes and then you end up watching the whole movie again.
Yeah.
But like, oh yeah, so Training. I think that was what Training Day came out.
That year.
Um,
Ali came out that year. You had
Ali. I was disappointed in Ali. I thought, my feeling of when I saw it, I thought, wow, I didn't think it was possible for someone to make a boring movie about Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
It was, and Will Smith was fine. I mean, but I don't think, but again, it's like, the Academy voting, like, what he did in Ali compared to, I think, a far superior performance in The Pursuit of Happiness, which I think also was a better film.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's weird, like how what the Academy kind of, gravitates to, and I don't know if there's campaigns involved or the studios, like, I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of campaigning and horse racing and stuff like that involved in the award season. It's like I would imagine. I'm curious to see how much of that has changed over the years, but because I feel like it probably has, but I don't know.
There was an article today that I just read that came out about, of course, about Crash.
Right.
Crash over Brokeback Mountain, and and talking to the producers of both of the films. I mean, like, but I mean, I think that was an Academy surprise. I mean, I don't think anyone was more surprised than Nicholson.
Yeah.
But like, I think that was an instance of like the Academy voters. I mean, I remember when it came out, like, a lot of old Hollywood, like, your Ernest Borgnine, who said, "Oh, I'm not going to see that movie," or I mean, because it's like, a movie about, like they said, well, a movie about gay cowboys, and it says, well, that's not really
a bit reductive.
It's a bit, it's more than about that, but I think, and Crash is not. I mean, people, knock on Crash. Crash is not a bad movie, but it's not an Academy Award winning.
I thought Crash was way too overdone. I thought it tried to, like, it basically bullhorned its points around instead of just like trying to it. I understand what it was going for. I just didn't necessarily feel like the way it did it.
And I think that's some of the criticism that people have of Green Book, is that Green Book, it's a nice, pleasant film, but the problem is that it doesn't tell us anything new. Whereas in the way it's told, it's told very done. It's marvelously acted, but it doesn't give us any new information. With Black Klansman, I think Black Klansman was one of my favorites. And also a movie that wasn't even acknowledged, Eighth Grade.
Yeah.
Black Klansman, even though, the way it was told, it told us some really extraordinary information. Green Book could win. I don't know. Like we were saying before, it on one hand, it's kind of nice to be surprised. I would like to see Star is Born acknowledged. I think the song. People were upset, like, oh, Bradley Cooper was nominated for Best Director. Bradley Cooper is doing just fine.
Yeah,
he was nominated for an actor and co-writing the screenplay. I don't know if he's going to win. I don't think any of those are going to win. I'd like to see Sam Elliott. I mean, guys have been in this business 50 years, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
I would love to see Sam Elliott win for Star is Born. He was tremendous in it.
Yeah. I think Best Actress, I think Olivia Colman could, but I think Glenn Close.
Yeah, I think Glenn Close is probably going to be the front runner by that. But yeah, I mean, I could I could see Olivia Colman if the
Yeah,
favorite has sort of like this groundswell. I mean, I wouldn't be, I would be fine with that because
yeah. I don't think there's no one that'd be like, well, if they win, I'll be disappointed. But
yeah,
I think, I mean, in every year in the Academy Awards, in the performances, there are hundreds of thousands of performances that don't get
oh yeah,
acknowledged
yeah,
for whatever reason.
mm-hmm.
But and the thing is, I am of the feeling now, regarding the whole Oscar host thing, we need to stop having hosts for any of these award shows.
Yeah,
Like the Golden Globes did not need a host. No offense to Sandra Oh and oh god, what's
Andy
the other
Samberg,
Andy Samberg,
yeah,
but just hand out. We don't need the Screen Actors Guild Awards to have
no,
the host.
no,
Um, I think the thing about the Academy Awards, they want to get a host because they're worried the ratings are going to be down if they don't have a host. The problem is, it's like the ratings have been down anyway.
yeah,
So this is an opportunity for them, I think, to shake things up and
mm-hmm.
do something a little different.
Yeah.
Just the show gets longer every year. I mean, I think, and now I guess they're only going to have two of the song nominees,
which is absurd. I mean, really is absurd. It's like, okay, so you're gonna go with the no host thing. It's like, but you're not gonna give us all of the nominated songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think people are just too. I think the people who produce the Academy Awards, who put on the Academy Awards, are just too set in their thinking of what people want with the Oscars,
Yeah.
instead of really listening what people want in the Oscars.
Well, and the thing is, it's kind of like the Super Bowl. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, they're more concerned about who's performing at halftime than the game,
Yeah.
or the 4 or 5 hours of stuff leading up to the game. It's like,
Yeah.
in the '60s and the '70s and the '80s and the '90s, like they just played the game.
Yeah, exactly.
But they figure for advertising, and I get it, like the commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know for the Academy Awards if the commercials are necessarily important.
They're not really a thing because I don't think no, they're not really as much of a thing for the Oscars as the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like I've seen people online basically say it's like, well, chances are, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't be surprising to see somebody like Netflix or somebody like that pick up the award ceremony. And it's like, you know what? You want to make, and the way it feels like the way they're trying to shorten the award ceremony to make it 3 hours is sort of the wrong way, where it's like, oh, we're not going to show all of the awards, we're not going to show all of the musical acts. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the stuff we want.
Yeah, I mean, I always liked the part of the Academy Awards when they would give like the Lifetime Achievement Oscar, or now they give. If I'm like when Donald Sutherland got it, I think last year or the year before, like I would have liked to have seen that, because this is a guy, that's Donald Sutherland. Like he deserves to be on, frankly, the real show, I guess. Like what they did with Peter O'Toole and Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier. I mean, but like, they did that with Jenna Rollins. This kind of the technical Oscars, I guess. Like they give all of the Lifetime Achievement Awards, but it's weird. I mean, they're going to try to get a host, although now with entering February, I think
now they're resigned in the fact that they're not going to be a host. It's not going to have a host this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it really kind of boggles my mind that like the Academy, they haven't really, it feels like they haven't really taken advantage of the internet quite as much as they should.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of, making like the technical awards or the honorary Oscars and stuff like that. It's like, where's clips of those? It's like, are you just waiting for the Oscar ceremony to show it? Maybe I want to see, it's like, set up a YouTube channel and just have that stuff. Just have the acceptance. the awards, those award ceremonies and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Let us see that type of stuff. I think at a certain point they're gonna have to at a certain point they're going to have to go to that. I think because it's like they're just so hesitant to I think they just don't realize that I'm sure a big part of the reason ratings are down isn't because of a host, isn't because of the movies. It's because people aren't watching TV as much as they
No.
used to.
Well, and nobody wants to watch actors pat themselves on the back, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, because by the time the Oscars have happened, there have been 27 other
Yeah.
award shows, you know. Like tonight, like I mean, I'm a member of Screen Actors Guild, but there's no reason to televise this. They're like because you know, like we don't need another award show, you know. It's like. And because and also the Screen Actors Guild Awards, I don't know. Do they actually have any bearing on like who's actually going to, you know, win an Oscar?
If you go by the fact that actors make up the largest percentage of Academy voters, you can argue that it could be a bellwether, but at the same time, there have been years where it's not.
No.
I mean, I think the thing is, it's like I think like things like the Golden Globes and the Screen Actors and you know Directors Guild might be a different story. Producers Guild,
yeah.
But you know, just this whole idea of the awards season leading up to the Oscars, bringing out frontrunner is kind of gone. It's kind of been that way for at least a decade or so.
Oh yeah. Well, it used to be like you know the New York Film Critics, the Los Angeles Film Critics, the National Society, like Chicago maybe. Like those were the critic awards that were really pretty decent indicators of like okay, well, we have an idea of who the nominees are going to be maybe, and then you'd have the Golden Globes and now there's just so many. You go on IMDb and you look at like just all of the awards, you know, I mean, no offense to any of these organizations, but it's like the Southeastern Critics, you know, or like the Fruity Pebbles Critics Association. I don't know, you know, like it's just, I mean, I guess if you're on the receiving end, if you're winning these awards, great.
Yeah.
But it's like, what was it like with Quentin Tarantino, you know, when he was losing, I think he won an MTV award. And he said, you know, when you've sat through award shows all season and you're getting sick and tired of hearing Forrest Gump winning, you know, he said, I get it. Because, I mean, you know, you also wonder if you go to 27 award shows and every other time you're not hearing your movie be called up, I guess, you know. But quick thought, switching gears. So the kind of teaser trailer for the new Ghostbusters. Jason Reitman, Leslie Jones is not happy about it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on?
I still have not watched the teaser trailer. I mean, I kind of understand where Leslie Jones is coming from because I know that they not only put a lot of effort into that reboot of it, but they also, especially her, took a lot of shit for it.
Even before I remember when the trailer came out, it was extraordinary the amount of like anger. Like there were people who said, like, "How dare you make?" And I said, "What do you like? Do you lose sleep at night? Like you know." I mean, Paul Feig is a very talented comedy director. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think the film.
The film was fine.
It was fine. It wasn't great.
Good. No, it wasn't as good as you hoped it probably would be, but it was fine. It was nothing.
Yeah, I think it was on par with Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah. But no, I you know, I'm interested because of Jason Reitman doing it. It's like we'll see how that goes because I mean he's really never made a movie like on that scale.
Yeah.
So I mean I think I feel like part of it is, well, we're putting Jason Reitman in charge of it because of the fact that he's Ivan Reitman's son.
And
Not
I
that
don't
Jason
think
Reitman's
he.
not talented. I mean, Jason Reitman's very talented, but
Yeah,
I I just I don't know. So
I could see Leslie Jones's, but I don't think there was any malice on Jason Reitman's
no, I
part.
don't think so either. I
And
mean,
no, I mean, this it happens. I mean, like my thing is, I don't know exactly what the film is going to
yeah,
be. Because the second Ghostbusters film came out in what 1988, 89,
89.
and like, and it's not a bad film.
No.
It's again, it's like nothing compared to the original.
Yeah.
The I don't even know if it's a remake, a reboot. I mean, it's its own standalone film.
Yeah, I haven't really. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it too much since that teaser came out. So I mean, I don't really. It's like I need to look at it a little bit more, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. So
Yeah, I mean, hey, if he makes a good movie, I mean, and that's the thing is like Ghostbusters, the Paul Feig, like it cost a lot, and it made, I think it made a
it
nice
made a
chunk of
decent
change.
amount of money. I mean, it did
And, like
okay.
I think it made over 200 million, which amazing now. It's like people consider that underperforming
Yeah.
now, like which is amazing.
Mm.
Um, but let's see.
Um,
Now, any last thoughts on American Beauty?
Yeah, I was actually going to sway around back to that because of the fact that unfortunately I do have to get ready to go work.
Sure, yeah.
I don't really have too much more to say on it. I mean, I think a lot of the things I wanted to say about it. I mean, we kind of talked about it. I mean, it's kind of natural we're going to talk about specific things about it. Given what has transpired in the past 20 years and sort of like what stand and the fact that we're deep into award season, stuff like that. But I think the thing that I love about American Beauty and the thing that I'm grateful for the rewatch I had before this podcast is the fact that it put the movie firmly back in my head as far as what the movie actually is, and just sort of realizing that that movie has a lot more going on than just some of the things that we may associate with it now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I do appreciate you coming and us getting this time together to talk about it. I really appreciate
Always
that.
a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And like me, like I can go off in this direction, that direction, but like we always come back. But no, I think the film holds up very well. I think it's a movie that's going to be talked about in another 20 years and another 20 years after that.
Yeah.
Separate from whatever happens to Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary piece of filmmaking, of writing, of acting. No, it's always weird. However, when they put it on TNT or TBS, because it's like, well, you got to cut this out and that out, and change
Yeah.
this. So it's kind of like, and things that it cuts out, it's integral to the story.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know how they often do that, but
Yeah.
they do that with movies all the time. I mean, I like when they put Scarface on, TBS, and they have the person whose job it is to go in and dub all of the
Yeah.
237 F-bombs that Pacino dropped.
Yeah.
But no, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Brian. We can talk movies anytime, and thanks so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. I'd like to thank Timothy J. Cox for joining me today. It went in a few different directions, the conversation did, but overall I think American Beauty brings up some of those conversations. So it's always great to talk to him about movies and acting and performances, and we definitely will be doing more of that as the year and years go on. Thank you for joining me at the Sonic Cinema podcast. You can find me on YouTube at the Sonic Cinema podcast, as well as my personal YouTube, B Scuttle, which is for my music and other things. hit us up at patreon.com/SonicCinema for more, including early access reviews for a lot of the movies I'll be covering in the 1999 movie year, and as well as exclusive Oscar nomination commentary, as well as some other commentary, criticism, and special mini podcast episodes specifically for patrons. It's patreon.com/SonicCinema. Coming up, we've got a big year ahead in the class of 1999. A lot of the more significant films still to come, as well as some that you may not necessarily be expecting. But I hope you enjoy the conversations. There's a lot of great people going to be involved with them. For now, this is Brian Scuttle, and thank you for joining me, and have a good day.